get Illinois turned around. I just like them a little bit better right now than I like Minnesota. Minnesota, like Jeremy said, is just a little too inconsistent. Uh, Give me Illinois in this one.
All right. Yeah, I agree with everybody. I will say this: Brett Bielema has been a coach at Arkansas, and he's also been a coach at Utah. And I remember when he was the coach at Utah when Pitt played Utah back in the day. And so I'm quite familiar with him. But here's the one that's really going to Indiana. Well, how about Indiana versus Michigan State? Now, this could be a trap game. And what I'm saying is Indiana right now is on a roll. They're 13th in the country, but here you might have a Michigan State team that just might be able to pull this off. Ray, you're up first on this one.
Yeah, listen, Frank Cignetti has done a tremendous job with Indiana. That's a hard place to win. I used to cover the Big Ten back in the early 2000s when Joe Paterno was still the head coach at Penn State. And there would be a year here, a year there where the Hoosiers were relevant, back when Antoine Randall was there. But that's never been a place that has been able to sustain success. So, Cignetti coming from James Madison, where he built a tremendous program, got them from one double-A juggernaut, in the transition to Division I. He really knows what he's doing. I don't see any letdown today. I think the Hoosiers are going to win this and probably win this going away.
You know what? That was a good hire, Ray. Curt Cignetti is a great coach. He coached at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and he's been the whole Cignetti family, except for Frank last couple of years with Pitt. Yeah. Other than that, the Cignetti family has always been a good coaching tree.
Sorry, I said Frank. It's Curt. I'm sorry about
Curt,
that.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was Curt because Frank, I think, isn't working right now. I don't know. So, Mike.
I agree with you both. Cignetti's built a pretty decent program up there at a place that's not easy to win. Indiana is clearly a basketball school and a basketball state, and he's got a football team that's competing. I haven't been sold on Michigan State in at least a season and a half since they fired Mel Tucker after his debacle. So I'm going to take Indiana in this one.
I'm doing the same thing here. Kentucky, Tennessee. Tennessee is number 2 in the country. Kentucky's been kind of up and down over the years. We'll start. Jeremy, first I want to get your thoughts on Indiana, Michigan State, and then we'll start with you on Kentucky, Tennessee.
Michigan State couldn't beat Michigan. There's enough said. Michigan's not a good team right now, and they were able to beat them in their house, in our own home stadium. I've said all season, you asked me at the beginning of the year, I said Michigan will be lucky to win 8 games, and it looks like I'm right. I said the exodus of players through the transfer portal after Harbaugh left the team, plus how everybody left as far as graduation, and then the underclassmen that went into the draft with the people who graduated. It was a total of 64 players. When you have 110 scholarship players all together, and that's with the quarter scholarships and everything else, 120 with walk-ons. There's like 10 walk-ons every year. So you lose over 50% of your team, and you have a brand new coach, and you don't have the same quarterback that you just won a national championship with. You're not going to be very good.
All right, let's go into the comment section here real quick. We got our first one of the morning. Mary B says, nice streaming guy. I actually love this game. And here we go. There it is right there. And we could play together. I'm a streamer. Add me up on a Discord. I guess that's one of them gaming streamers, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
First time I ever seen this person come on for a comment. All right, guys, a couple more here, and then we'll move on to the NFL and the World Series. We'll dissect what happened with the World Series. Let's talk about Louisville at Clemson. That ought to be a really good game. Ray, start with you, Louisville, Clemson.
Yeah, listen, I like Clemson. I know a lot of people were down on the Tigers coming into the season. They haven't been able to be that upper echelon team that they were, for the last 5-10 years. But I think they're back on the upswing. I think they get it done today. And I think that game against the Panthers, assuming the Panthers can beat SMU tonight, that game looming in a couple of weeks could be big in the ACC. So I'd like Clemson to get it done today.
All right, Mike.
You mentioned Tennessee, Kentucky. I'm just going to point to the UT jersey hanging behind me because
Louisville, Clemson too. We'll go over both.
Yeah, my wife is a UT girl, and she would hate me if I didn't pick Tennessee all the time, even if I know they're going to lose. So I'm not risking a divorce. I'm going with UT on this one. As far as Clemson and Louisville go, Louisville's had their ups and downs over the course of the year. I know that Clemson may not necessarily be what we thought they were going to be this season, but I still like them to get by Louisville, just like I like Pitt to get by SMU and set up that big matchup in a couple of weeks' time.
Jeremy.
Both teams have been inconsistent this year. Both teams have struggled at key positions. I'm going to take Louisville here. I for some reason, I just get the feeling that Clemson, while they can play good at times, Louisville can be just as good.
Well, I think I agree with you on that, Jeremy, because you know why? Jeff Brom in Louisville, every game they bring it. They don't horse around. They bring it to everybody. I've seen Louisville bring their best every game. And I tell you this, I want to give Fran Brown, the head coach of Syracuse, some credit. Even though Pitt blew them out, they still were in the game. They were still going for it on fourth down. They were still getting into it. And, they didn't fold their tent. So I want to give it to Fran Brown from Syracuse, despite the fact that Pitt blew them out. I think Ray will agree with me on this, that they pretty much still try to at least do – they were in the fight. I mean, they lost it, but they were in the fight. And I have to give Fran Brown credit for that.
Yeah, it's hard to win a game when your quarterback throws 3 pick sixes. But
yeah, absolutely. And if Pitt can play like they played against Syracuse against SMU tonight, SMU's in trouble. So, I mean, so we'll see what goes on there. All right, we're done with our college football here. We're going to get into our next segment about the World Series. But first, brought to you by Alex's Flowers, 412-661-6071. Call Alex today. He's been in the flower business 30 years, a Pitt alum, and he also has he'll cover weddings, funerals, special events for you, and also for your loved one if you want to get your loved one some flowers. Call him today, 412-661-6071 or alexsflowers.com. All right, let's get into the World Series. Dodgers took it in 5. What went wrong with the Yankees? What made the Dodgers win it in 5? Start with you, Jeremy.
Judge batting 150 in October. That's what went wrong. He's had 2 home runs this year in this postseason, and he got them all just to beat Cleveland. He's not a postseason guy. I've said this. He's got more strikeouts than hits, more hits than extra base hits, more extra base hits than home runs, and less RBIs than he has strikeouts. That is not a good combination for a postseason guy that's the most clutch during the regular season and just disappears like he's a Dallas Cowboy player in the postseason.
Right.
Yeah, listen, I want to give some props to Freddie Freeman. He's been a tremendous player for a long time. He's a good guy. To see him have that moment, especially with that home run when he went over to see his dad after that. It's good to see guys like that succeed. But for me, the reason the Dodgers won the series, the Yankees couldn't take advantage of Garrett Cole's 2 really good starts. I mean, Garrett Cole pitched his butt off. A lot of people will make something of the contract he had and the fact that he hasn't led them to a World Series yet. You cannot pin this series on Cole. That 5th inning, Judge makes the error, Volpe makes the error. People are putting it on Cole to cover first base. Anthony Rizzo had plenty of time to run over there and touch that bag, and Cole just didn't get any help. So what he did in the series was really impressive. Hopefully the Yankees get back, and Cole's getting up there in years. We'll see if they can get back with Cole. But I just want to give props to Freddie Freeman and Garrett Cole for those 2 performances in that 5-game series.
Mike.
Those of you of a certain age will remember this. This is Joe Boo. Joe Boo did not come. That is why the Yankees lost. They did not give Joe Boo his cigar. They did not give Joe Boo his shot. they forgot.
Bartender Joe Boo needs a refill.
Yep. I can't figure it out how a team that had been playing like that, suddenly the bats went cold. Oh, yeah, I can, because I watched the Phillies do the same thing in New York against the Mets. All of a sudden, you start forgetting how to play fundamental baseball. You start swinging for the fences. And when you miss, you end up with stat lines like Aaron Judge had. Quietly, Juan Soto actually had a pretty decent World Series, so he probably earned himself another $100 or so million on top of a small fortune that he's already going to get. But we saw that, without anybody else around, there was just no run support on the Yankees. They had one really, really good game, and then the other ones, they just failed to show up when it meant the most. I was hoping that this one, the two top teams in baseball throughout the season, two teams that came in with flaws, but really great. They had their advantages, but they also had flaws. I thought this would be a much better series than it was. And I actually was kind of disappointed with the whole thing. Congratulations to the Dodgers. They deserved it. They won it. When it mattered most, they showed up.
All right, I'll say this once, I'll say it again. I got egg on my face because you know why? I said the Dodgers were going to lose in the first round of the playoffs like they have in the last few years. But the New York Yankees, like Jeremy said, Aaron Judge and the Yankees soiled the bed, more or less. Because I'll tell you what, they have the talent and they had the ability to win this World Series. And I didn't think the Dodgers were even going to have it because I wasn't sold on them after they soiled the bed the last few years by not getting any further than the first round of the playoffs. All right, guys, let's talk about the NFL. Steelers are off this week, so that's why Ray has a little extra time to be on the show here. All right. This next segment is brought to you by the original hometown pizza, Moon Township, University Boulevard. On your way to the airport, on your way to a Robert Morris game, on your way out anywhere, stop by the original after a game. After you've come in at the airport, stop by the original hometown pizza, Moon Township, University Boulevard, 412-264-4444. Some great pizza. It's eat in, takeout, or delivery if you live in the Moon area as well. Tell them Ralph Williams sent you. You get a discount on your order. The original hometown pizza. All right, guys, let's talk about the NFL. Some great games this weekend. But I had a top 5 that I didn't go over on my radio show from Fox News, who says the top 5 coaches that could get fired either in the middle of the season or at the end of the season. And the number one is, believe it or not, Doug Peterson from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nick Sirianni's on that list from Philadelphia. Kevin Stefanski from the Cleveland Browns is on that list. And there's a couple more. Oh, yeah, Mike McCarthy from Dallas is on that list. So, guys, who do you think any one of these guys gets fired either in the middle or at the end of the season? Ray, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Peterson would probably be that guy. I know Stefanski is having a disappointing season too. I wouldn't put it past the Browns to get rid of Stefanski first, but listen, Peterson won a Super Bowl. He's a quarterback guru. And for whatever reason, Trevor Lawrence just is not flourishing under his guidance here. So, they're not devoid of talent. They've got some weapons for Lawrence to throw to, but they just haven't done it. So if I had to pick one of those guys, it would be Peterson or Stefanski, but I'll say Peterson just because it's been such a disappointing season thus far for the Jaguars.
All right. And also, I forgot to mention Zach Taylor, believe it or not, from the Bengals is on that list. So I was quite surprised. Stefanski, I wasn't surprised, but Zach Taylor, I am surprised about. Mike, your thoughts on those 5 coaches that could get fired?
If I had to go during the season, I would go with Doug Peterson. Yes, he did win the Super Bowl with the Eagles in his second year. And yes, he's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer, but part of the end of his tenure with the Eagles coincided with that sharp downturn in Carson Wentz's success. He's gone into Jacksonville. He's got Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has regressed. So I don't know what it is there. Maybe he's just better off as quarterbacks coach, head offensive coordinator necessarily than a head coach. I can see where Kevin Stefanski gets fired. However, if I'm an NFL team, excuse me, and Kevin Stefanski, a two-time coach of the year, gets fired because ownership insisted on playing the shell of what used to be Deshaun Watson, I can't really blame him for the fact that he doesn't have control over who he starts. He's not calling the plays. He's not running his offense. I'd hire him in a second. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
If you're asking me who's most likely to get fired at the end of the season, I think, well, it's not really getting fired because Mike McCarthy's out of contract. I just don't think that he's going to get renewed. And, you know, given Tepper's bend on the world, you know, is Dave Canales even remotely safe down there in Carolina?
And you know what's funny, Mike? I don't know if you noticed or not. Ray probably does. The Tepper family all graduated and are have a lot of money, and a lot of the buildings at Carnegie Mellon University have Tepper's name on it. And I knew one of the Tepper family who wasn't really rich and ended up passing away of depression. And I knew him. He used to drive a cab. His name was Dave, and he was one of the cousins of the Tepper family. And it was sad to see Dave go. But the Tepper family's all over the buildings at Carnegie Mellon University. So you figure with one of the most expensive universities in the country, you would figure he'd have a little bit of this. But, you know, sometimes they say college students, even though you graduate, that don't give you common sense. So, you know. Jeremy,
It's
your
something
thoughts?
you can't learn in college.
I would know. I didn't go to college.
If one's going to be fired in season, the writing was on the wall just the week before Deshaun Watson got hurt, because the GM and the owner stripped Kevin Stefanski of the offensive play calling. That was made public knowledge that week. Once that happened, I kind of saw it was coming. And if you look, even though Deshaun Watson was doing his usual playing bad, the play calling was better. They were still in that game when he got hurt. In comes Jameis, and they almost came back and won that game at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then they go out and beat the Ravens with the same play caller. That told me Kevin Stefanski's out, and everybody's so excited, up in arms about it. Doug Peterson being fired in the season? No, I absolutely am not surprised. That roster, if you put it apples to apples versus everybody in that one, the only one you think is better is the Texans.
All right.
There's a lot of things missing in Indy, and you remember what Rex Ryan used to say in New York about drafting? Never draft the one-year wonder when it comes to a position. What did Indy do? They drafted the one-year wonder with 11 games under his belt as a starter in Anthony Richardson, and he's been struggling ever since his hot start once he got injured. He has the lowest completion percentage of any quarterback in the NFL, in almost NFL history. I think, congrats to Keely Smith for being worse. So,
Keely Smith was bad. That was an awful.
So those two getting fired in season, I see it happening. Mike McCarthy, Jerry never fires anybody in season. He's going to let him ride out and be his little nightcap buddy. Remember, he spent the night with him after he signed the contract. So that's going to be his nightcap buddy, where they go and drink and commiserate over the games every time. And Zach Taylor, I don't know what's going on with the Bengals. That roster is just missing Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. The rest of it is still pretty good, and they just can't seem to get it together or stay healthy.
And their offensive line every year stinks too.
They have a bad
Forget it,
offensive
Mike.
line, which they've had for a couple of years. They didn't invest much in the defense. They let Joe Mixon go, thinking that they could just easily replace him, forgetting that Joe Mixon was a big part of their offense. And they wonder why they regressed when you saw who wasn't added and who was let go. And I understand this has to do with having to pay Jamar Chase, having to pay T. Higgins, having Joe Burrow's contract. When you let those players go, you can't be surprised when your when your team regresses.
But they have invested in the O-line too. That's the other thing.
No, they have not, except for Darius Mims, and he's stinking up the joint right now. So,
I'm saying they've added every year to that O-line. They've added every year, and it's never worked.
No.
Maybe it's that scheme.
It could be. It could be Zach Taylor's scheme. Ray, your thoughts on the Bengals? And
Yeah, listen, they should be so much better. You got Burrow, you got Chase. Higgins has been banged up, but no one wants to hear about injuries. I mean, listen, I cover the Steelers. They have more guys on injured reserve than anyone in the NFL, I think, and they've managed to get to 6-2. I'm still not counting the Bengals out. I love Joe Burrow as a quarterback. Maybe they can get back into it in the second half of the season, but their offensive line is not good. That's really holding them back right now. But I don't know. Look for the Bengals. Look for the Jets even to maybe take a little bit of a jump here in the second half. I was looking at both of their schedules, guys, and it's not out of the question that either can get to 9-8. Where you look at the Steelers, toughest schedule in the second half of the season, both the Bengals and the Jets, it's a little bit easier. So I know a lot of people want to write those two teams off, but 7 spots in the AFC, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those teams grabbed one of those final playoff seeds.
all right. Thursday night, Jets beat the Texans 21-13. I heard that CJ Stroud was out of the game. I'm not sure if that was the case. I don't have Amazon.
He went back in.
Okay. That's kind of surprising because Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but Wednesday night we all took the Texans mostly. I think you were the only one that you took the Texans too Wednesday night in our roundtable discussion.
Keegan was the one that took the Jets, if I remember right.
The Jets, yeah, and we all laughed at him.
We got egg on our face. I really didn't think Aaron Rodgers had it in him to look like a quarterback again. That was my problem. I said, the guy looks washed. He's throwing players under the bus, telling them they ran wrong routes when he throws picks. That's not a sign of a good leader. But whatever he did that week in the offseason, talking with the wide receivers, who all played that week together for the first time, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Devontae Adams. And I'm going to say, the first half, it was DeDropte Adams again. He was dropping passes from Aaron Rodgers, which is very uncharacteristic for him to drop a pass. So, and I still don't think, I think it would be 7 points less because that Garrett Wilson touchdown, if you go by the one they called back on the guy who tapped the same foot twice, well, both feet means you have to do one left, one right. He only got one leg down in bounds. The other one hit out of bounds before he got down. So I don't think that one-handed catch should have been a touchdown from Garrett Wilson. And Malachi Corley, don't celebrate before you get to the end zone, dummy.
All right, here's an interesting game, guys. Commanders versus the Giants. Giants are losing games. Commanders are up and coming. We'll start with you, Mike, because this is your end of the stick here. The Commanders. Go ahead, Mike.
It was an interesting game when they played down here in week 2. Jaden Daniels hadn't really gotten going to the extent that he's been playing recently. He had a high completion percentage, but a lot of shorter passes, a lot of checkdowns. They leaned heavily on the run. And despite the fact that they were able to move the ball, they never actually got into the end zone in that game. Since then, that was their first win of the season. Since then, they've gone 5-1. Jaden has at times looked like the best rookie quarterback of the last I don't know how long. The stats that he's putting up, the way that he's playing, he's just so cool. He's so calm and collected back there. He called the entire Bears game at the line. They did not huddle once in that game against the Bears last Sunday. That's just something that you don't really necessarily see. I've never seen another quarterback, a rookie quarterback, call an entire game. The one thing that gives me pause when I'm looking at the Commanders right now is over the course of the last couple of weeks, they have again struggled to get the ball into the end zone. They're getting down there, but they are getting stopped. They had a lot of success against the Giants the last time they played, running actually with Brian Robinson Jr. They had a lot of success running right at Dexter Lawrence. We'll see if that holds up. Lawrence is having like a defensive player of the year type season. All across the board, I think the Commanders are a better team right now than when they played in week 2. I can't say the same for the Giants. Yeah, I could see this being a trap game. I could see this being one of those games where Jaden Daniels the bloom comes off the rose, Cinderella drops her slipper, it turns midnight, the pump, all those cliches. But other than this idea that eventually Jaden's actually going to look like a rookie quarterback, or eventually the Washington Commanders will regress to the mean that we anticipated coming into the season, based on what I've actually seen, based on the statistics, based on how they have played through 8 games of the season, there's no evidence to suggest visually or anything like that they will lose to the Giants on Sunday. It would just be like, this is what happens at some point in time.
All right, Ray.
Yeah, listen, the Giants in some ways impressed me in that loss. You heard about how much their offense was struggling going into that Steelers game and how good their defense was with Lawrence and how that was the strength of their football team. For me, the opposite kind of happened. The Steelers rolled up 400 yards of offense, if not for some of those penalties and the replay review. That's the Steelers are scoring over 30 points again, maybe even close to 40. If they're a little bit better in the red zone, they were 0 for 4 in the red zone, guys, and they still scored 26 points. So maybe it was just a one-off for 1 week, but Daniel Jones was not the reason they lost that football game. I know he forgot to check out of that late. He missed the protection, didn't get his tight end over on that strip sack for TJ. But I thought overall he played a good game, and I really put that loss on the Giants' defense more so than their offense in that football game.
All right, Jeremy.
The Giants' defense, if they had the Browns' offense, they would have twice the win total. And that's saying with Deshaun Watson. And I'm not knocking Danny Dimes at the same time. I'm just saying the wide receivers that have been at the Browns have been more consistent than all the wide receivers and tight ends for the Giants. Because as much as everybody wants to knock Daniel Jones, he's not throwing the picks, and he hasn't fumbled the ball as much. I've seen a lot of drops. I've seen wrong routes, and you can tell because the wide receivers are upset with themselves after those plays, that the ball's going behind them and just hits the ground or goes in front of them. Now, does Daniel Jones still have issues? Oh, 100%. But at the same time, he's not as bad as that quarterback that I talked about in Indy.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Richardson or Flacco?
Yeah. So, and the Giants' defense is playing steel curtain-ish, if you might say. They don't give up a lot of yards on the ground. They don't give up a lot of yards through the air. Dexter Lawrence has as many sacks as Aiden Hutchinson had before his injury now, who's I think he's second in the league, right?
Yes.
Second or third. He's being otherworldly this year. And it helps that they got guys on each side that are stepping up. Kayvon Thibodeau's nursing his wrist. Azeez Ojulari has 5 sacks now. You got Brian Burns, who's been in and out of the lineup, but he quietly has 5.5, 6 sacks. That's not really very quiet, really, considering we're only 8, 9 games into the season. Those are some good numbers. They're not TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Nick or Joey Bosa type of numbers, but those are solid starter in the NFL numbers where they can rival somebody towards the end of the season if they keep up that production. But if your offense can't score you at least 24 points, You can't win.
Oh no, not at all. But I
We're,
tell
we're
you this,
talking about that the Giants were playing good against the run. They've had consecutive weeks where they've had a 100-yard rusher. And
Rusher, yeah,
Saquon Barkley had doggone near a career day in
I
3 quarters. And sat
You're
there on
talking a next generational talent in Saquon Barkley, though. Saquon
Najee
Barkley went in there with a
Harris had
mission
a
to
good
make
day
them
too.
submit.
Najee Harris had a pretty decent day. He was over 100.
yeah.
And we're not talking about Najee in the same breath as Saquon. Brian Robinson Jr., if they lean on him, and I think the biggest beef I have with the Commanders is that they don't always lean on him as much as they should. If you're going to turn around and give the ball to him and you're going to let Jaden Daniels run on you, that Giants defense can give up a few yards on the ground. Now, the one thing I will say is Danny Dimes has looked god-awful against most of the other 30 teams in the NFL, save one.
Right.
The Washington, whatever incarnation, Redskins, Commanders, football team, whatever you want to call them, for some strange reason, Daniel Jones has always had good games against Washington.
Well, that's because it's a division game. Am I correct on that? Yeah. I mean,
Well, it doesn't matter who's been coaching him. He's always shown up in that one game.
You know, and
Wow.
I hear these knocks on Daniel Jones all the time on how he's god awful against the other 30 teams in the NFL.
He was releasing that ball pretty quick against the Steelers.
But I will say one thing. Why is it coming into this season with only 4 more games played? Does he have 4 more touchdowns and 5 less interceptions and a 1% better career completion percentage than Trevor Lawrence coming into the season?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But Trevor Lawrence is ranked as a top 10 quarterback, and everybody calls Daniel Jones a bust. You know, you got to start calling a spade here and doing the same thing with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a bust. I think he's half the reason why these coaches are going to get fired.
Absolutely. And a quarterback can get you fired. Deshaun Watson, that deal was a bad deal, you know. So, all right, we're in the Mata Heating and Air Conditioning Studio, 724-201-0500, Mata Heating and Air Conditioning. Our final segment of the day, it's called The Local. Ray, what you do is you talk about locally in Pittsburgh, what's going on in sports or whatever. And Mike will talk about talk about the Commanders and whatnot there. And Jeremy will talk about Detroit. But before that, this segment's brought to you by Big Dogs Auto in West Mifflin, right on Buttermilk Hollow Road, 412-999-0191. Call the Big Dog today. Look, I've been to mechanics, and they've tried to take me to the cleaners. And I know some people that have been taken to the cleaners by mechanics, but not here. Big Dog Auto, oil change, brakes, inspection, much more. Call them today, 412-999-0191. Quality work at a reasonable price, and they won't take you to the cleaners. Big Dog Auto. All right, we'll start with you, Ray, local.
Well, the Pirates stink. The Penguins stink this year. The only hope is that the Steelers can make a playoff run, guys. They're 6-2. And listen, I know Baltimore has the better quarterback. They probably have the overall better roster, but they're a game behind the Steelers now. I'm going to say the Steelers finally get over the hump and they win a playoff game this year for the first time since 2016. I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, although they got a shot, but I think this is the year the Steelers finally win a playoff game.
Mike.
Down here in this area, if you listen to sports talk radio in the Baltimore, Washington metro area, it's like 90% Washington football, 8% Baltimore Ravens, if they get any time, and then that little 2%. There's only one thing in town that can take over and bump the Commanders, and that's the Russian machine, number 8. Now, when I first moved down here about 10 years ago, it was the funniest thing. I kid you not. I walked into a bar, and I was sitting there, and this guy comes up next to me, holds his hands out, and he goes to the bartender, "I need an Ovechkin." And the guy looks at him, he says, "What's that?" He says, "It's a white Russian without a cup." Ovechkin scored his 858th goal. He is now under 40 away from breaking Gretzky's all-time record. And at the pace that he's playing right now, he may actually get it done this season. People are buying up games. The ticket prices on the secondary market, if you want a late season Caps game ticket for the home games, are through the roof right now. It's the only thing that's getting any attention down here outside of Jaden Daniels and what the Commanders are doing.
All right, guys. It's my dog Bailey here. He wanted me to pick him up, give him some loving here while we're at the show here. Jeremy.
Well, in Detroit, the big talk is, hey, we're facing off against Green Bay. We traveled up there yesterday, or Friday, I should say. It looks like we're without Josh Pascal for a second week in a row. Malcolm Rodriguez, we lucked out. It wasn't a major ankle injury. He re-aggravated an old one. He has to miss a week. Mikai Wingo won't be playing. Sion Vaki won't be playing. And our rookie defensive tackle from last year, second-year guy, Broderick Martin, he has not been activated from his 21-day activation window yet, so he won't be going with them. But I've been more impressed lately with that UDFA we poached back from the Arizona Cardinals just before the season started off the waiver wire, and Trevor Nowaski. 3 games, 3 impactful plays. He's got 2 sacks and an interception. I think he's having one hell of a season. He'll probably get those snaps that Malcolm Rodriguez was getting. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a ground and pound game, and both teams have a very good ground game. 0.2 of a yard separates the average yards per game. So, but the difference will be the red zone defenses. Green Bay's red zone defense gives up 60% touchdowns. Detroit's defense gives up 43.6 scoring total. And
All
I
right,
think
Jeremy.
that'll be the difference in the game.
All right, Jeremy.
That's pretty much all that's going on here. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, there. I was just going to say, Jay says you're a fountain, or sharp as always, and then here he says you're a fountain of knowledge. There you go. Jay's a steady commenter here. I only have one thing to say. Ray pretty much put it together here for my local as well. But I want to congratulate the Pittsburgh Riverhounds of the USL. They made the playoffs again for the 10th straight year, and you know what? They might surprise a few people. They had some bumps in the road starting the season, some losses they shouldn't have had. The key ingredient here, though, is they were never blown out in any game. They were in every game. They only lost by a point. They tied, but they never got blown out. Not one game this season, and you got to give credit to them for that. Bob Lilly's a great coach, soccer coach, and I think that. Secondly, like Ray said, the Pirates stink, and let me tell you how bad they stink. They screwed over Roddy Telez out of that $200,000 bonus. They screwed Michael A. Taylor out of his, and now 5 players are up for free agency, and not one of them want to re-sign with the Pirates, and I don't blame them. And guess who one of them is? Andrew McCutcheon. So guess what, Bob Nutting? If I'm you, I would find some more giveaways and some more fireworks displays and concerts, because nobody's going to show up at the game because McCutcheon's going bye-byes. He wants out as well. He's had enough, and so does the rest of these free agents, and I don't blame them for the solidarity for their other brothers who got released and didn't get their $200,000 bonus. You know what, Bob Nutting, you ought to be ashamed of yourself for the way you put this team out on the field. It's really sad, and I feel bad for I don't feel bad for the city of Pittsburgh, because you know why? They can put a dent in his wallet by not showing up for the games, but they still show up anyway for fireworks and giveaways. So, all right, let's go around closing information. Jeremy, go ahead with yours. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find my writings about the Detroit Lions on the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune heading. You can find my show on Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions on YouTube. You can also find it on the Facebook page. You could find it on Twitter, and you can find it on Instagram. Then you can always find me everywhere. I'm on all the socials. It's Jeremy Bullrich. Mike, it's always good talking to you. And Ray, it was great to meet you today. Sorry, I was having trouble seeing because my eyes were still watering from waking up earlier. I thought I heard Roy and called you Roy, and I apologize.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys too. You can find my stuff on post-gazette.com, and I'm on Twitter or X at RayFit. one.
But gentlemen,
Well, I'm back, Jay. So there you go.
Ray, it was a pleasure talking to you. Ralph, thanks a lot. Jeremy,
You're
great as always. We got to do this more often. You can find me at Amped Up Sports and the Too Many Guys Soccer Show on YouTube and all your platforms.
All right. I want to thank everybody for their comments as well. You can reach me. I have several shows on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And please subscribe. I need 24 more subscribers to make 200. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And please don't forget this afternoon, Sports Corner Radio Show, 2 to 3 p.m., 1250 a.m., 92.5 The Answer. Ralph Williams, Smoking Jim Frazier, Claudia Rosano, Luther Dupree, our special guest, Leroy Johnson, head coach of Amani Christian Academy High School. Great football team. They're in the 3A championship series, and it's great to see. We'll be with Coach Johnson. Also, you can catch my new show, The Ralph Williams Show, which is next Saturday. And before this one, it's going to be a triple header of Ralph starting next week, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., The Ralph Williams Show with me, Ralph Williams. My guest will be Jake Houck of the Allegheny Institute of Public Policy. We're going to talk about Pittsburgh Public Schools, Allegheny County budget, politics, and a whole lot more. And then after that, what a guest I have coming up, Tony Moreno, who's the Republican candidate who ran against Ed Gainey for mayor. And we're going to talk about this debacle with the chief of police and a whole lot more with Tony Moreno. And that's all starting next Saturday, November 9th, with me, Ralph Williams. Also, you can reach me on Twitter, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Tumblr. And I also have several, and you can also check my website at www.rwmediaproductions.com. And please check it out. There are several archive shows on there as well as on my YouTube channel. All right. Sorry I didn't get to everybody's comment here. We got a couple late ones right now. Let's see what Jay says. Well, all right. Thank you very much for that, Jay. And thank you, everybody, for your comments today. For Jeremy Ballrick, Mike Sisak, and Ray Fittipaldo, I'm Ralph Williams. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend and be safe.
Thanks, Ralph.
Jeremy, I have to leave. I have to take my wife to choir practice, so I
It
can't
has-
talk right now.
And it hasn't ended yet. You're
Oh,
still
it
live.
hasn't. Oh, gosh. Wow. I didn't realize that. Sorry about that. Wow. Jeez.